Amazing man. So all of the readings and Vince's talk and the music, even though I don't know what they're going to be saying, Spirit does, God does.
Yeah.
It blends it all together because we're talking about the same thing right here, right now. So this morning I want to begin with a short poem that was written by someone in one of the classes over the years. And it fits today's topic. And the topic is trust to transform. That's what we're going to talk about. And it's all about resurrection. So this is the poem. It is, the face of faith I see in every flower, every tree. Although their shroud is winter snow, calm, serene, their hearts beat slow. What faith, what dreams, help them bear the sunless days with patience rare. I asked a rose, are you alive? The winter's long, can you survive? The rose spoke softly in my ear. I live and know and have no fear. You've asked my secret, I'll confide. God with me lives deep inside. This morning, this Easter morning, we are looking at the face of faith. And we're giving it a different name. We are calling it the trust to transform. The trust to transform our lives, what we experience. And so this is what we're talking about more specifically in the power to trust, to transform. The power of trust to transform that which seems to be hopeless into something filled with love. The power to trust to transform that which seems to be so dark into that which is filled with light. The power of trust to transform that which seems to be dead into something quite vibrant and alive. Trust what, you might ask? Trust the law. We all know the laws of the universe. Yes, trust God, of course. But this morning, this Easter morning, we're going to be moving into trusting something a little different. And it's the resurrection principle. We're going to move into understanding and trusting the resurrection principle. Every flower, every tree that exists, trusts this principle implicitly. It just does, naturally. It is the principle that says that even though something seems to die, it does not really. It's not really dead. But it is in the seeming death that allows something wonderful to come through, like everyone's been talking about this morning. You know, there's a theme going on here. Maybe it's the truth. We die to the old to make way for the new, because there's always new. We're talking about a creative force. We're talking about the power of God, which is limitless and which is always creating new out of its own nature. And each and every one of us has within us that power, because we're all creations of this one life. So we all have within us this power to create. And so the seeming death allows for something much more powerful to come forth. And so the last verse of that poem, the rose spoke softly in my ear. I live and know and have no fear. You've asked my secret, I'll confide. God with me lives deep inside. The Master Jesus, because you've been hearing about Jesus in New Thought, in science of mind, in religious science, which is what we are, is the way shower, the great example, the mystic, the one who really represented a pure, enlightened human. Really enlightened, one with the Father, which is the God of all. And we're all united in this oneness. So the Master Teacher Jesus certainly trusted this resurrection principle. He trusted it. So clearly he trusted it, because there would be no resurrection without a crucifixion. Wouldn't have happened. And because he did, he was able to rise to a transcendent way of being. He went deeper than that, though. He went much deeper than that, and that's where I want us to maybe go to today. He trusted the idea that in order for there to be a resurrection, there had to be that crucifixion. Remember, there would be no resurrection without the crucifixion. In order for him to be transformed into a higher vibrational being, right? We know we're all energy. We are all energy. We know this. It's a proven fact. It's scientific. So we all vibrate because we're energy. So in order for him to be a higher vibrational being, the old had to appear to die. And here's a spiritual paradox. It is. Now, this is a spiritual paradox for all of us. Because the resurrection principle states that nothing really dies. It doesn't really die. The caterpillar appears to die in order for the butterfly to be born. The caterpillar doesn't die, though. It doesn't die. It does, however, get reduced to a glob of DNA and all kinds of stuff inside the cocoon, but it's not dead. Yet, the beautiful butterfly emerges from that cocoon without really a death. It's a transformation. So you have the caterpillar transforming into the butterfly. And that's part of our lives too. In order for us to be transformed into a higher vibrational being, to be beneficial presences that we are really born to be here on this plane, the old has to seem to die away. The old way that's no longer serving us. If it's serving you, keep it. But a lot of the times it is not serving us and we want it gone. The resurrection principle tells us that nothing really dies, but is reconstituted, if you will. It is reconstituted. Our genes don't die. Deepak Chopra has a whole book creating health on that. They don't die. They reconstitute themselves. I know a lot of you are going through or have recently gone through some crucifixions of your own. Deaths of sort. And I ask you this morning then, deeply and honestly, do you trust the resurrection principle at work in all of those situations? Are they taking place for your higher good, for you to learn something? Are you afraid? Jesus, a master teacher, the way shower, said 4 times in the Bible, "Be ye not afraid." He said that, and 3 of those times he said it to his disciples. And that's really interesting. 3 of those times he said that to his disciples, which in all metaphysical Bibles, because we have a metaphysical interpretation, is really it's representing the different faculties in our minds. So all the different aspects of our mind. The committee, if you want to call it that way, because we have, I know I do, a committee in our head. It's not one voice. It's, or Don Miguel would say the matote, it's thousands of voices pulling us in every different direction. And then maybe we wonder why we might feel a little down or a little confused. But that, as Vince said, is part of our journey, is part of our struggle. The struggle is our expansion. We expand into greater concepts of who we really are if we are awake to remember that we are spiritual beings. We are not these earth suits. This is holding our spiritual self. This body is holding the truth of who I am, and each one's body is holding the truth, the real truth of who you are. And there's a part of speech in the Greek language, I thought this was really interesting, called the present imperative, which has a particular significance and which does not exist in our language. When a commandment was given in the present imperative, it meant that the commandment said to do this thing, and I am commanding it right here and right now as a continuous and steady practice in the future. So you do it now and it continues on. That's all implied in this present imperative. We don't get that in our language. For example, if someone says, be still, does that mean right now? Or as a steady, continuous practice in the future? We can't tell from our languaging. There's a lot of translation that went on. But when something in Greek was constructed in the present imperative, they knew what it meant. It meant to do the thing now and to keep doing it as a steady, continuous practice in the future. That's what it implied. And Jesus said to forgive. He meant to forgive and do it right here, right now, and to continue it into the future. I know that Carol and I will be doing the Radical Forgiveness class on Tuesday, and it is majorly transforming. We have seen such incredible healings take place, because I don't care what religion you've come from, what religion you're practicing, or what spirituality you're a part of, it's always going to come down to that forgiveness. Can't get away from it. And remember, we do it for ourselves. We do it for us, to free us, to become more of the greatness that we really are. Each and every one is a great, great being. Yes. But it's covered up with that committee, you know, that committee that's just fogging our mind. So another important point about the present imperative tense. I usually screw up one word a week, but this week I've been pretty good. When it is said in the negative, like, be ye not afraid, there's an additional meaning to that. It was translated from the Aramaic. And so in that translation, sometimes things get lost, most times. Things get lost in the translation. Stephen would know that, yeah. Most of it got lost in the translation. But anyway, there's an additional meaning to that phrase. It means to stop doing what you've been doing. Don't do it now, and don't do it in the future. So specifically then, Jesus said 4 times, 3 to the disciples, remember? Stop being afraid. Stop being afraid like you had been. Don't be afraid now, and don't be afraid as a steady and continuous act in the future. That's what he really meant by that one little phrase. Doing it now and keep doing it. It's like forgiveness. You do it now and you keep doing it. You don't just stop. Because I can trust you. There'll be a bunch more people pop up and situations pop up that you're going to have to do that forgiveness work in. You don't do it just once and then you're finished. 70 times 7, remember. And the reason he said this, though, the reason he said this, be ye not afraid, is because he knew, like the flowers and the trees, he intrinsically knew and trusted in the resurrection principle. Love the resurrection principle. And in the poem, the rose spoke softly in my ear. I live and know and have no fear. You've asked my secret, I'll confide. God with me lives deep inside. That's trust in this resurrection principle. And when we trust in this principle, then there is the transformation we desire. That's when the transformation takes place. As Vince said, in the struggle. So as we struggle and move through the struggle with our faith intact, our faith that there is a higher power that's for our good, that's when we truly transform our lives. That's when transformation takes place. And I believe in being very specific and concrete here, so I have some very specific examples of what trusting the resurrection principle really could look like. Trusting it means, you know that if your job ends, it just means that there is a better one waiting for you. Trusting means that you know if an illness strikes, there is a newness and a rebirthing yearning to take place. Trusting, it means that you know if a loved one dies, there is still a great amount of love available for you. Trusting it even means that when you die, notice I didn't say if you die, because guess what? We all die. But you know that these physical bodies, we shed them. My kids don't like when I say that. But that's what we do. We shed these physical bodies, but the spirit within us is eternal. So the true I am, the true self, is eternal. So that's what part of that resurrection principle means. So where do you fit in that fear to faith scale? Because it is fear to faith. There's a wonderful story that I found about the 6th president of the United States, John Quincy Adams. When he was 80 years old, he encountered a neighbor who greeted him one day with the question, "And how is Mr. John Quincy Adams this morning?" The old man replied, "John Quincy Adams himself is very well, thank you. But his home he lives in is sadly dilapidated. It is tottering on its foundation. The walls are badly shaken. The roof is worn. The building trembles and quivers with every wind. I'm afraid John Quincy Adams will have to move out of it. Move on and change residences before long. But he himself is doing very well, thank you." That's the belief that we're talking about in the resurrection principle. This is a principle, which is a law, which is infallible. That means it's the same for everyone and it never fails. So my friends, I ask you then, this morning, do you trust in this resurrection principle? You may say yes, but then when you're in that tomb of darkness, because you can be in a tomb of darkness, you might say to yourself, when will this be over? You know, I'm done. But still, we're in that tomb of darkness. Remember, Jesus was 3 days in the tomb, which represents darkness. Time is symbolic. As Stephen said in his song, time is symbolic. It's not even real, but we need it to function on this earthly plane. New Thought minister Mary Morrissey's idea was this. What happened Saturday night, she's referring to Jesus, in the tomb, a breaking down of the old, that's the caterpillar, turning into that butterfly, so that the new, the transformed, and the ascended could rise. That's what she is saying took place in that tomb, representative of the darkness. If you are in your tomb of darkness, be assured that everything is happening in divine order. Remember, the first law of the universe is divine right order. So always think of that when things are going on in your life. Divine right order. Everything is, if you trust in that principle, I'll tell you, it can get you through anything because it is the truth and it also puts everything into perspective for you. Divine right order. It lets you off the hook, is what it does. It lets you off the hook, and it means that you are not to expect your human self to understand all the stuff that's taking place in your life all of the time, because you won't. It's that surrender and trust. Do not expect it to be perfect. You're here to learn, right? You're having this human experience to learn. Do not expect to avoid tough moments, because you're not gonna. They're gonna happen. It's how we grow, it's how we expand. Do not trust, but do trust. Do trust. You want to trust this, the process. Because this is a whole process. And the whole resurrection principle is based on that process. Look at nature. You know, nothing's budding on the trees quite yet. But we know they're going to, because nature understands the resurrection principle. Everything looks like it's dead in the winter, but it comes back to life again every year. It transforms itself. It regenerates itself, and so do we. So do we. Do you think God created all of nature and then didn't bring that principle in for us? Of course. Of course. So surrender to the process, just knowing that everything is happening for our highest good. And trust the Easter experience. Trust the Easter experience, surrendering to your higher good. Because when you do that, the resurrection principle is absolutely assured. And then I have a real short reading by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe when he wrote, "To be a traveler on this earth, you must know how to die and how to come to life again." I think that's perfect. The resurrection principle is not some faraway concept, some theoretical idea. It is living and breathing and having its way with you, right here, right now. It happens all of the time, can't avoid it. So trust that, my friends, and you, like Jesus, will rise to a transcendent way of being. A transcendent way of being, rising above. As you are lifted up, that's the beauty of it. As you are lifted up, you affect people around you. Others are lifted up as well. So let us celebrate Easter in joy and in faith, in knowing that something new and wonderful is really waiting for us. It's waiting, it's right there waiting for us to recognize it. And it's happening right here and right now, not in the future, in this moment. And so it is. So, happy Easter!